Okay, so again, the issue was that people thought that I was saying the same thing that Ayn Rand was saying in many topics, and I showed these in these past couple weeks that no, absolutely not. Ayn Rand was no different than any other philosopher in history, so-called philosopher. They weren't even philosophers. They just did recommendations in politics. They did, among other things, altruism. And so one individual put a comment, and this is what, I think it's a she, so I'll say she. She said, all you do is trying to take a dump on her, Ayn Rand. Okay, in order to attempt proving how smart you are. Okay, so smart alecky. Anyways, if you get down there, it says, especially her, she liked, this individual says, because she delivered super valid reviewing positions and thinking starting points, especially her critique of altruism and collectivism is gold. And there you have a definition of altruism: disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. And Ayn Rand was not too much into altruism. So should I criticize what Ayn Rand did in the sense that, do I agree, do I disagree? Doesn't even enter in the issue, in the discussion here. This is my argument against it. Altruism has nothing to do with philosophy or with science. Altruism is a recommendation, how to behave, politics. It's all religion. It all has to do with belief and opinion. So I don't care if Ayn Rand was right. I don't care if she had the proper recipe for how to live. Irrelevant. Altruism has nothing to do with philosophy. Okay, philosophy is an explanation of a behavior. And Ayn Rand did very little of that, very little. Okay? And this is what she thought about altruism. This is good old Ayn Rand. She said, the proper method of judging when or whether one should help another person is by a reference to one's own rational self-interest. Okay? She was criticized heavily by a lot of people for that. And one's own hierarchy of values. And again, all I can say is none of that has anything to do with philosophy. Okay, so I put that up again. Okay, this has nothing to do with philosophy. Philosophy is about explaining. Okay, so what was Ayn Rand's general picture of altruism? Just to put it in the right context here. She gave an example, and I guess that essentially portrays her vision of altruism. She said, imagine a loved one, let's say your mother, your son, or whatever's the most loved person for you, maybe your wife, your girlfriend, okay? And this person's drowning, okay? Should you risk your life to save that person? Should you throw yourself in the river, in the lake, whatever, to try to save that person at the risk of your own life? Well, if you do, you may be doing it for your own self-interest. It's because your happiness depends on that person. You want to save them because that's going to create happiness for you if that person is alive. If that person dies, well, then you're not going to be very happy. But what if it's a stranger? Would you throw yourself in the river, in the lake for a stranger now? And so she says, well, now you got this issue of, of whether you should risk your life for something that's not going to make you happier. Okay? And yeah, there's the issue, I think, that she didn't factor into that scenario, which is that, we don't have too much time to think when someone's drowning or there's an emergency. It's like you react, you instinctively react, right? And I'm not sure you're going to have time to ponder, do I have a 60% chance of dying here? Will I drown? What if the other person pulls me down? We don't get into all that. So some people react and immediately take care of the problem because they're trying to save that person. And it's not like it's a conscious decision. It's like instinctive, okay? But that's, again, irrelevant because, again, none of that has to do with explaining behavior, okay? And that's the main point that I want to make here, okay? See, what Ayn Rand did as a result of that, she extrapolated these notions from the individual to politics, to to a country, to the government. Okay, she says, based on that reasoning, should you help other people through your pocketbook, especially? You know, should you vouch for welfare, for Social Security, for Medicare? I mean, she says, here we're going to be paying the working person, the person who really creates something for society, and is maintaining this parasite, as she put it. And she didn't like that at all. And you might say, well, Bill, what do you think? Well, again, I don't get into that. I'm just saying that that's a recommendation. That's not a philosophy, because philosophy, the notion people have of philosophy, it's a way of thinking. That's not the scientific definition of the word philosophy. We cannot use that in a discussion, in a rational debate. We cannot say philosophy is just a way of thinking. That's too vague, that's too general. We can't use that, but that's the notion people have. Oh, it's Joe's philosophy. That's where the problem is. The problem is in the definition of the word philosophy, and people take this common notion and try to bring it into science. And you can't use it in science consistently. It's too vague, too general. It's got to be more specific than that, what philosophy is. And that's why we have to define it as explanation. If you're not explaining anything, you're not philosophizing. Okay? That's according to rational science. So, Ayn Rand extrapolated her notion from the individual to the state, essentially. Okay? And so she came up with this idea. One of the notions, she obviously wrote a lot, says poverty and suffering. One would seek to discover their cause. Okay, yeah. Why did some nations develop while others did not? Okay, and she says capitalism is the only system that enables men to produce abundance, and the key to capitalism is individual freedom. She was thinking again of free will, or as I like to call them, the free willies. All these people believe in free will. Okay, and what do I have to say about that? Well, for the first time, I'm going to stick my neck out for good old Ayn Rand, okay? I say she did a pretty good job here. For the first time, she's trying to explain something. She's trying to explain why some countries are more advanced than others. You know, what happened there. And that's good. That's more like history, not politics. That's not a recommendation. That is an explanation. So I did like that, in general. But this is, not her typical type of exposition. She, in general, what she did was give recommendations on how to live and what the government should do and why you shouldn't worry about the poor people. They should worry about themselves. Everybody should worry about themselves. Free will. You do whatever you have to do to survive in life except, hurt me, steal from me, do some damage to me. Otherwise, do whatever you want. And that's where she came up with this role or the purpose of government. And she says the following. This is her conclusion on this. The only proper purpose of a government is to protect man's rights. Okay, that's the role of government, okay? Which means to protect them from physical violence. And I guess she would also refer to robbing, stealing, that kind of thing. I'm sure she included that in this notion. Okay, she says, play fair. Don't hurt me, don't steal from me, otherwise do whatever you want. And government should limit its extent, its scope, just to that, to make sure that nobody hurts another person, nobody steals from another person. This is the role of government, and not have private industry regulate all that stuff. She said she was certainly against all that stuff, and she said the only proper function of a government are the police to protect you from criminals, the army to protect you from foreign invaders, and the courts to protect your property and contracts from breach or fraud. La 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 la. Okay, and the source of government's authority is the consent of the government, of the governed. In other words, we give authority to those we call the government, who will, supposedly serve we the people. Well, yeah, I have a lot to say about that, but today's not the day, okay? Okay, so again, what do I say? That all that stuff has nothing to do with philosophy. It's got to do with her personal opinion and nothing more. And this is what she did a lot of. She did a lot of personal opinions, a lot of recommendations on how to live. And that's why that's not philosophy. That's a way of thinking, and a way of thinking is not philosophy. That's not the rigorous definition of the word philosophy. Okay? That's the bottom line.